Hey, good afternoon. So it's David here, and we're going to talk a little bit more about dads in recovery. And we just finished our 8 week program for that was we created for dads in recovery. We just finished it. It's awesome, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that today. And this is, I think, more of interest to dads in recovery, or if you have a dad and he's in recovery, this might be of interest to you. Or if you're married to a man who's in recovery and you guys have kids, this could be of interest to you. Or let me see. Well, I mean, if your brother is in recovery, I mean, it's just actually this might be of interest to a lot of people. Who do you know that's in recovery who's a man who has kids? And there's lots of us. There's lots of us, and I was privileged just to complete my first course. I just want to bring you up to speed on this. I spent like 3 months doing research for this, and well, that's not true. That's not true. I did 41 years of research, right? 41 years of research. I can't do that when you're
Oh,
clicking on
sorry,
your
I didn't
phone.
know.
I'm doing this and I just can't do it when he's on his phone. So
Okay. We're learning.
stay with me.
I'm listening.
So 41 years of research, and
David Donna. Green M&Ms only.
and because my daughter was born in 1980, and I sobered up in 1980, and so this year will be 42 years as a dad in recovery, and I'm so grateful. I have three wonderful kids that love me and talk to me, and so what I learned going through this program with these men, tons, because there was I was going to tell you them: Ashley and John and Billy and James and Brad and Gord and Nate and Chris and Bob, Richard and Josh and Tyler. Tyler Tyler didn't quite make it, but I think he'll be back. And Jason. Hey, that's a bunch of them. There was actually, we started with 14 and we ended up with 13 at the end. And it was wow, what did I learn from these men? And they're 30, I think 35 kids, right? 35 kids. One of them had seven, and and four women, and just amazing. So, you know, dads in recovery. Well, the first thing that we dug into was that how difficult it is for dads in recovery to ask for help, right? So difficult, because they we think we're supposed to know, how to be a dad in recovery, and a lot of them didn't have great role models. Their dads were didn't have they didn't have great role models. That's the fact. So we saw that over and over again, and so we dealt with that in the course. We talked about their dad, and that we had to get beyond just what many men had said about their own dad, which was, well, I'm okay with my dad, which that's bullshit, or I've forgiven my dad, more bullshit. So we went deep into dad and talked about dad, and how do we get to a place where we actually love dad, right? Oh, I love my dad. No, don't tell me you love your dad. When's the last time you called him? And love is an action word, and even if he's passed, you know and we're not going to whitewash dad, with yes, he missed in some things, but how do we get to a place of loving dad no matter what he did or didn't do? So we went through that, and we looked at that. We also looked at, well, I'm going to tell you a couple of things. We looked at the relationship with the mother of our children, and many of the men were either estranged or in court, or had struggles with the mom. She's mad at them. Why is she still mad at me? Jesus, I've been sober for whatever. So we really went into that, and how had you broken the trust with the mother of your children. Broken trust. That's the basic thing that we're dealing with. How do we rebuild the trust? Of course she's mad. Jesus. We lied to them. We told them we were mature men, that we had it figured out, that we could do the job. And we couldn't. And we didn't. And so there's some rebuilding to do there. And again, the same thing. How can we find ourselves in a place of loving that mother of our children? No matter what she's done or hasn't done, no matter how angry she's been, no matter what. How do we find ourselves in a place of love? So that came into the course. It was amazing to listen to the men talk about their relationships and to watch those relationships improve with their dads, but also to watch those relationships improve with the mothers of their children. This course we just finished happened to go through Mother's Day, right? And all the men were instructed, I don't know if they all did it, but they were all instructed to make, Mother's Day special, because it is. And to show your love and gratitude to the mother of your children. How could there be a more important woman in your life than the mother of your children? So, and that came out of that. It was amazing. And then we looked at the relationship with the kids, of course, and spending time with the kids and recognizing that sometimes trust had been broken there. And there were men in the course who were estranged from their kids. Could you imagine? Oh, the pain, of being a man in your 50s or 60s or 70s. And because we had older men in our group that didn't have relationships with their own children, and there was pain that came out from that, but there's a way out of that. There's not out, but there's a way to heal those relationships. And in some cases, it was just starting with getting current pictures of them and putting them up and saying to talking to those pictures, I love you, and sending them love, and love is the magic sauce in the whole program, and the underlying thing that we saw a lot with men, dads in recovery, was this concept, this idea that they weren't important, that they weren't needed, so if I can bring anything to dads in recovery, if there's only one thing, one message that they got, it was this message that they're important. They're really important to their kids, right? And I think that came through really, really well. That they said, okay, yes, I am important to my kids. And statistics tell us that kids that grow up without their dads don't do as well. It doesn't matter whether you're a great dad or not. You want to be a great dad, but kids need their dad, so even if you live out of town, and we had one situation where one of our men lived, a long ways away from his daughter, and he went from calling her once in a while to having a organized call. He was calling her now every week on Saturday morning, and that was great. What happens when 50 weeks go by and dad is called 50 times? That's a big deal. It's a big deal. It shows consistency and love. So those are all part of the things that we deal with. And then we looked at mom, our own mom, and our relationship with our own mom. Sometimes a little codependent, right? Sometimes a little codependent. Mom, still taking care of us when we're in our 40s or 50s. And how the hell did that happen? But it does, and so hard to grow up as a man if we're still kind of dependent on mom's affection or mom's acceptance, right? So where do we go if we want, that acceptance or that? So we realized that the road to mature man was through a relationship with our higher power. Remember, this is for dads in recovery, and men in recovery they got recovery because of a relationship with a higher power. That's the deal. The whole 12-step world is all about this surrender to this higher power, because we recognize it from our own, ends, from our self-reliance, it doesn't work. We can take all the personal growth courses in the fucking world, excuse me, and it doesn't work for us. Yes, we have measurable change, but what really works for us is a reliance on a power greater than ourselves. And that's where we went to for these men, and so that they could actually be in meaningful relationships with, let's say, the mother of their children, or let's say the woman that they happen to be with right now. Because many of us really didn't come into those relationships as mature men. So that's kind of the meat and potatoes of this. And I learned so much, Um, yeah, I learned so much, and got like 2 pages of results and from this first thing. So I'd love to hear your feedback. If you're one of the men who just went through my program, I'm going to post this in our group, but also it's going to be public. If you want to make a comment on what you got from the program, I'd like to hear that. And yeah, tell me about a man in your life, or you who's in recovery, and it's been very hard. We want to break the chain. The overwhelming thing that dads in recovery told me is they wanted to break the chain of addiction, and in their family and with their kids, to break the chain. And this is what can happen, when we have real recovery and focused on being the dad that we know we can be. And having a context that I'm going to be a better dad than my dad isn't quite enough, or I'm not going to do what he did. Not quite enough. We're looking at a whole higher level of love. And so that's a bit of the story about the program. We're going to create kind of an online program from this. There's so many possibilities, results-wise, that could come from this. I mean, wow. There's everybody I talk to says, David, this is so cool. There's a huge need, for men to have some guidelines as to be a great dad, and it doesn't come from a whole bunch of to-dos, right? Or to-don'ts. It comes from, bringing love into every relationship. And I see God and love as the same thing, right? It is. So I remember getting that. There's this little side story. I struggled in my early days in recovery with a concept for God, because they were saying I'd have a higher power of my understanding, and I didn't understand, and I really struggled. And I remember sitting in a church basement doing a big book study years ago, and I'm sitting in the big book study, and over on the wall in the church basement there was a little sign, and it said, "God is love." I'm like, wow, okay, got it. And I've been able to hold on to that, and it's grown and since, but really, that God is love, and where is love not? Where is God not? So that's the recipe for becoming an amazing dad and a mature man, because mature men have a relationship with a higher power, period, full stop. We're not trying to do it alone. We're not coming from fear. We're coming from love. Okay. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I'd love it if you'd make a comment, if you'd subscribe. If this is of interest to you, that somebody that might be of interest to, we're going to build a group, for a next live course, and we'll soon have something available, that'll be like evergreen. And I'd love to get you into we also have a private Facebook group. I want to get you into the private Facebook group, but you have to come in through the course. So yeah, get in touch with me, comment. I don't have all the fancy landing pages set up or anything like that yet, but I'm excited. I'm grateful. It seems like my whole life, 40 some years in recovery and 40 some years as a dad has been brought, me to this point to be able to deliver this back to the men. And I think it'll affect everybody, their children, their children's children, right? Their mothers of their children, everybody, our society. Dads need to show up, and I want to help them do that. That's it. Love you guys. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.